Welcome, friends, to the ICSS Sunday Morning Marxist Forum. My name is Raj Sahai. The Institute for Critical Study of Society, also known by its acronym ICSS, was formed in 2004 to preserve Marx's heritage and to support struggles for social justice and socialism, and which over time we expect will reach the stage of complete human liberation. The opinions expressed in our forum are only those of its authors, but we in ICSS all are united in our respect for the collected works of Karl Marx, who in his 11th thesis on Feuerbach said, "The philosophers have interpreted the world in different ways. The point, however, is to change it." And change indeed is happening rapidly today with multiple wars, it seems to me. As you are aware, Iran was attacked unprovoked simultaneously by Israel and US on February 28, 2026, using numerous Tomahawk US missiles, killing Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, along with approximately 40 other high government and military officials who were meeting in the official residence of the supreme leader, reportedly to discuss the ongoing negotiations between Iran and the US. His family members were also killed in this attack, including his young grandchild. On the same day, a missile attack described as deliberate by Al Jazeera investigation report on Shajareh Tayyibeh, which means the good tree, school in the city of Minab in southern Iran, has left over 185 young girls dead. So within an hour of those attacks, Iran responded, firing its missiles on US bases in the Gulf region and in Israel. President Trump has demanded unconditional surrender and promised a very heavy punishing attack on Iran if it did not obey his command to surrender. Iranian President Pezeshkian has responded with a resolute rejection of this demand. Russia and China are now reportedly involved in this ongoing undeclared war on the side of Iran. That is Russia and China on the side of Iran. Oil and gas production and shipping is in jeopardy. Price of crude oil has jumped already high and may go much higher. So how did we arrive at this dangerous moment of peril for Iran, the Middle East, and indeed for the whole world? What is the history of the emergence of this bloody conflict? Our guest speaker today is Farshid Vahedian. He has a master's degree in electrical engineering. He is a peace and social justice activist and a member of U.S. Peace Council. He currently resides in Northern California. With that, the presentation today will examine the 1979 Iranian Revolution, one of the 20th century's most significant national democratic revolutions, and the 47 years of confrontation with imperialism that followed. It will explore why Islamic forces assumed leadership of this revolution and why it succeeded so swiftly compared to similar movements crushed elsewhere. The analysis then turns to the relentless US policy of regime change from the very beginning to the present day, including the ongoing aggression of the US and its regional proxy, Israel. Finally, we examine how decades of external pressure have shaped Iran's internal class dynamics, political factions, and the current opposition's demands and its implications for the Iranian people and the nation's future. Our guest, Farshid Vahedian, will speak for approximately 40 minutes. using slides, followed by a short break for announcement, and then we will have a discussion session which will run for about 45 minutes. So please hold your questions and comments until then. Now, please join me in welcoming Mr. Farshid Vahedian. All yours, Farshid.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. And I really thanks to the ICSF to invite me. The purpose of my presentation is not to give you the latest news or analysis that all you, this conscious audience, know better than me and following up. My presentation, the main purpose of my presentation actually to trying to give you a lens that you, by using that, you can analyze better what's going on in Iran and the current imperialist war that's being waged by Israel and the United States against Iran. And what is the best way to provide this lens other than looking back to the origin of the Iranian Revolution in 1979 and try to analyze all these 47 years of the different political currents that was playing in Iran history. So I will start my presentation by going through the beginning, from the very beginning. Can you see all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me try. Doesn't work. Right now, Alan, it doesn't. Yeah, here we go. So
You're advancing.
yes. What it's better to say from the very beginning, the Iranian Revolution is one of the major national democratic revolution in 20th century. When you look at the huge mass, actually, how the huge mass of Iranian people are by support of the Iranian leader Ayatollah Khomeini came to the street and fight for that. And one of the salient features of this revolution is the Islamic character of the leadership, which still has bring a lot of discussion about the nature of this revolution. And the other salient feature of this revolution is swiftness of success compared to the other popular democratic movement. So many other democratic movements actually we witnessed in the 20th century that was totally succumbed and suppressed by the counter-revolution and by the help of imperialism. And at the same time, one of the most important things for the Marxist people who believe that the class analysis is the most important in each of these social movements is the class alignment within the revolutionary process. So to start with the social base of the revolution is that the petty bourgeoisie, lower strata of the bourgeoisie, and section of the working class. And if you bear in mind that a lot of working class actually has and actually this working class from the quantitative number increase in the last decades of the Shah reign, a lot of them has a peasant background and with a strong belief, religious belief. And meanwhile, in parallel, there is a weakness that can be seen from the secular part, secular left, A part of that it was due to the brutal suppression that after the 1953 coup d'etat happened, and a lot of people in the left, especially the members of the Iranian Tudeh party, got executed or went to the prison, and a lot of them actually had to flee and go to the diaspora. So the only thing that remained in regarding the left organization and the parties was a number of clandestine guerrilla communists or mujahideen, Islamic Marxists, and also a number of the group clandestine group that is still working under the auspices of the Iranian Tudeh party. One of the major reasons why the leadership was with the clergy was the organization superiority that the Islamic people had. They can use the independent network of the mosque and the seminaries, and at the same time, the main the main place of their support coming from Bazaar, which has a very good type of a network to communicate with each other and bring all these information and news from outside, from Ayatollah Khomeini, to scatter around the people. At the same time, we can see even in the last decades of the Shah reign, there is a new tendency especially in the religious intelligentsia that are affected by the national liberation movement, like in Algeria, like in Palestine, that they actually found some kind of the new radical interpretation of Islam. This new radical interpretation of Islam actually is defined with the more strong tendency through the trying to help to free the oppressed people and to fight against tyranny. So this is a major help from the intelligentsia, especially the religious intelligentsia, that add as a factor to the successful of the Islamic leadership of the revolution. And to answer why there is a so swift collapse of the regime, there's few factors in play. The first and foremost is the lack of legitimacy of the Pahlavi monarchy. And in the last decades or last few months before the revolution, actually, Shah disbanded any other political party or activity and said there is only one single party that everybody who lives in Iran has to be a member of that. And very openly he said that anybody who is against that, we can give him his passport and he can leave. So this is one of the way that you can see how the dictatorship of the Shah becoming so intensified in the last 10 years. With a lot of pressure that coming from the activities of the left guerrillas and the Islamic Marxists, like Mujahideen guerrillas, and also some pressure from diaspora, especially the young student outside Iran. Shah feels more and more like an unstable situation for himself, and he intensifies his dictatorship on Iranian people. At the same time, there is a great, in the international arena, there is a great Cold War going on, and there is kind of the division of the religion between the two superpower, United States imperialism and the Soviet Union. And for this reason, United States Iran has a very important role in United States. And because of that, it was during the Carter presidency, and he was so cautious not to losing Iran. And that's why you can see that in compared to something, I will bring up I brought up the example of the Indonesian uprising. You remember that the Indonesian uprising was so strong regarding the quantitative and qualitative. And they managed to brutally suppress this. They killed about 1 million people from the leftists and from all the progressive movement. So when you compare this with Iran, there is a very short time of the movement against Shah, and basically it reached in the very short time to the victory. So it has its own drawback at the same time. It has for sure that there is an advantage for that because less people are getting damage regarding the death and the injury and all the damage that the Iranian military can put on the people. But at the same time, the SWIFT, it gives that there is no possibility, there is no enough time for the movement to become radicalized. And just a combination of a lot of different classes and strata actually came and reached to a very short conclusion that they managed to kick out the Shah. And at the same time, this is the advantage of that because the revolution is truly a popular uprising and encompassing all the social strata, just with the exception of the very tiny group of the bourgeoisie, comprador bourgeoisie, that was very close to the monarchy and has a lot of benefit especially in the last decade of the Shah reign. So for somehow all the international equation ended up that the Iranian regime actually toppled and Ayatollah Khomeini came to power. But from the very beginning, United States wanted to topple by any means this government and not to let at first and to fight with the nail and teeth against this government. And I just wanted to give you some kind of the very important things in that process that it has started from the same night of the victory of the Iranian Revolution. You see, not so many months pass that there is an attack by the Delta forces, like a Tabas Desert operation, that they wanted, for example, to free the rescue mission and do the coup d'etat that was actually was not successful. And there are some rumors even at that time, Soviet Union helped to actually patch this trial. There is another coup attempt by some kind of the old Iranian army officers few months after the announcement of the Islamic Revolution, that by the help of the members of the Tudeh party, Iranian Tudeh party, actually, they managed to botch that. And the Tudeh party actually informed the Iranian government that this coup is brewing, and they managed to totally make it totally neutral. After that, being all this trying of the coup was not successful, the next actually plot came to picture and to actually instigate Iraq to attack Iran. And it made to create the war between Iraq and Iran for 8 years. And this actually was a very sinister type of the plan that was unfortunately very successful to weaken most powerful army in the Middle East, Iran and Iraq. And by the instigation of the Americans, Saddam Hussein started this, and he was one of the one that at the end of the day was also damaged hugely from this action that he went through. In the internal also arena also, there is another coup that in one point of time, and this is started the floodgate of the Mujahideen, because Islamist Marxist Mujahideen, to that moment around 1980 or mid 1981, they at least was in favor of the revolution, and they have some support, and they put full of their support for the presidency of the Bani Sadr, and but because Bani Sadr started to oppose the supreme leader and go through totally different policy against the revolution, by the help of the Mujahideen, he made a plot to coup, but it was also was not successful, and he has to flee the country by the help of the Mujahideen. And after he deposed and went out the country, Mujahideen started their uprising against the people, and the huge wave of the anti-Islamic element and terrorism started by the Mujahideen. And from now on, actually, this Islamist Marxist group that has a huge background of being in revolutionary forces. If you look at all the document that before the revolution, this Islamic revolutionary actually published, and they try to teach their members. It was just a Marxist type of the analysis, like in the economy side, it was like just a brief translation of the twentieth analysis of the capitalist economy. But this suddenly turned to the most counter-revolutionary group. And you know that these major changes has a lot of damages to the Iranian Revolution. And on the top of that, you can see a lot of sanction, economic warfare, covert operation, and support of the terrorist group. A lot of damages that Mujahideen had made, it was by the direct help. You see, there was a huge bomb that was exploded in one of the major gathering of the high level of the Islamic leaders, that a lot of people, around 40, 80 people actually were killed by this bursting of this bomb. And it was definitely with the help, because the technology that they used at that time was not so much prevalent, and it need definitely a help of the foreign government to help the Mujahideen to use this new technique. At the same time, one of the major supporters of the Iranian government that helped to went through all these damages that from West coming was the help of the the Soviet Union, even if with a lot of anti-communist and anti-Soviet Union, you can see here and there because from the very beginning, the leading clique of the Iranian Revolution was not monolithically anti-imperialism. There is, in some portion of that, you can see a lot of anti-communist type of the attitude. So apart from this, they explicitly, each time that it comes to very critical point, Soviet Union always warned the United States against any direct involvement, any direct intervention. And at the same time, there is as I mentioned, there is a kind of the division between the area of the influence and the nuclear umbrella and the strategic space that defined non-officially defined by the two superpowers, was also has a lot of help to support the Iranian revolution. But the situation did not stay the same. By passing the time in the 1980s, you all know that the Soviet Union started to weaken. It involved with the Afghanistan war and all these counter-revolutionary of the Gorbachev clique actually weakened the power of the Soviet Union, and at the end actually finalized the collapse of the Soviet Union. And by this actually United States see that it's becoming the unipolar, and it can go for the full spectrum of the hegemony all over the world. And you can see the opposition to Iran actually getting more intensified. George, you remember that George W. Bush defined Iran as a part of the axis of evil. And this is exactly the time that one of the most moderate and reformist leaders, President Khatami, was, and he proposed type of the quote-unquote dialogue between the civilization, and he tried to get closer and to rapprochement with the West. And specifically during this time, the tone from the United States getting harsher, and they call it Iran as an axis of evil. And you are more the recent history, starting from 2002, shows that the pressure from United States to Iran, and also from the European to Iran, actually getting more and more intensified with a lot of different pretexts. One of the major pretexts is the access of Iran to the nuclear armament that for several times Iranian leaders, especially the supreme leaders, he said that we are not by any means trying to get access to that. And you witness all the prolonged CPOA negotiation during the Obama, that after a long discussion reached to some kind of the fulfillment, they open up an opportunity without any further that, just a small window of opportunity to a little bit turn down the intensity of the bad relationship between Iran and United States, which after Trump in his first tour of the presidency actually tore it up, and he said still everything returned back to even more worse, back to the time before the signing of this type of the semi-agreement. And at the same time, you see that all these terroristic attack, like the assassination of our Iranian nuclear scientists, and putting some viruses in the installation and the facility, the nuclear facility of Iran, that can actually ended up with the disaster. So these are all in the plan of the imperialism.
Farshid, how about finishing in another 15 minutes?
Okay.
Or you need more time?
Yeah. I think I can finish it in 20 minutes. Is it okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I'll go faster. So basically, from the very beginning, as I mentioned, that there is a joint type of the different classes of the strata for ousting the Shah. But right after the revolution, there is a all this contradiction between the different classes started to show much more vivid and much more apparent. And what especially, this is the process that especially Iranian to the party call it at that time, Juking battle. Juking battle means that it was coined by the Iranian to the party and said that this rivalry between the different classes inside the whole type of the state of Iran. And it is continued till now, till this moment. This is not something that died down or reached to a consensus. Never happened in Iran. Sometimes one group was prevailed to make the other one weaken, and sometimes the other way around, but it never finished. And the main thing that always the left, especially from the to the party of Iran was supported, was this anti-imperialism and popular line of the Imam Khomeini. This is something that always being said. And very interestingly, after all the dynamic, what happened after the revolution helped the other group, especially the Fedayeen, the ex-guerrilla group that has a lot of support, especially in the young people. They actually absorbed by the right policy of the to the party of Iran, and they all reached to a very close to some kind of the coalition, or even before some kind of the uniting with the to the party. And one of the main reasons that suppression about the left started was that it was the fear from the other side that after a while, to the party, as I mentioned at the beginning of the revolution, was not that strong. But with the right type of the policy, especially the policy between 1979 and 1982, the right policy of Iranian to the party was helped to bring up and to reach to getting very strong. role in the Iranian politics. So one of the there are several turning points that even the scene of the Iranian political party actually changed. One of these is the seizure of the United States Embassy. And as a result of that, the provisional government, which was fully by element of the liberal people, bourgeois liberal people, has to resign. And this is another shift toward radicalize the information, the combination of the Iranian state. As a result of that, the drawback is that the impact of the Iran-Iraq war. The impact of the Iran-Iraq war was due to that because the most militant element, the young people and the militant element, has to go to the front to defend Iran. And there is a vacuum created inside the capital and inside the political arena. And at the same time, the wave of the assassination and armed attack by the Mujahideen and other counter-revolutionary actually made the revolutionary front getting a lot of damages. As a result of that, bourgeoisie and the reactionary forces gradually solidified their position. And this is a good opportunity, the Iran-Iraq war. And in that context that you can see that suppression of the left in a decisive and brutal crackdown, a faction, I wanted to emphasize that this is a faction of the execution of the state that executed a vast number of the communists and the leftists. And it happened to the time, first of all, it happened at the time that Khomeini was still alive, but he was very weak, very disabled, and a lot of things actually just by using his own signature went through, which still a lot of unknown things happen in these criminal things that happen. But something we can tell for sure is that, for example, this is not a consensus all around the decision to do this criminal action is not a consensus from the very beginning, but at the end, there is no other way that everybody should somehow support that. But it doesn't mean that, it didn't mean that from the very beginning there is a consensus. And one of the main examples that's showing that this contradiction inside even the clergy is that Ayatollah Montazeri, one of the major and very important clergy, who unofficially was the successful, actually supposed to be the successor of Ayatollah Khomeini, was against of all these execution. And his opposition actually cost him that they put him in the solitary confinement, and he was not anymore the chance, he lost the chance of being the successor of the Ayatollah Khomeini. So it actually a lot of damage created, a lot of damage to the left, especially to the left inside the government. And as a result of that, and especially after the death of the Ayatollah Khomeini, Rafsanjani came to power, a vacuum created, and Rafsanjani came to power. Even if he was not the supreme leader, he held Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, as a supreme leader, but he was behind the scene under the shadow of the Ayatollah Khomeini. He did whatever he wanted to do. And his policy is to go whatever the World Bank dictated, and his final goal was to create a kind of the strata of the nourish bourgeoisie that helped him to get control of the economic part of the government, and at the same time reach, as a result of that, reach to to the political part of that, and his final goal is to get approachment and to get some agreement with the West. So collapse, and at the same time, one of the international things that helped this process to expedite is the collapse of the Soviet Union. And collapse of the Soviet Union, and a lot of people Rafsanjani sent a lot of new students, Islamic intelligentsia, to study in the West, and they came by studying in the economy and all the related to the human sciences, and they have the tendency, they got the tendency of all the Western university and the neoliberal approach that was the fashion of the time during the 1990s and the 2000s. And by this, he managed to co-opt the petty bourgeoisie, especially the Islamic intelligentsia that I mentioned at the beginning. They have a lot of radical approach, but they co-opted, Rafsanjani managed to co-opt them. And right now, a lot of people who actually went and seized the American embassy right now in the rank of the file of the reformists, the most faction in the Iranian society, in the Iranian political arena, that they are pro-Western and they wanted to immediate rapprochement with the West. But it was not the end. It was not the end. In this case, Khamenei getting very, very lonely. The petty bourgeoisie, revolutionary petty bourgeoisie, which Ayatollah Khamenei was the representative, the political representative of them, becoming very weak with all these changes that happen in the political arena. But there are a few things that happen and help to revitalize this small group of the Ayatollah Khamenei that's supporting. And one of the major things is that all these pro-Western things that happen was just resulted a disaster for the people from the economic point of view. The rate of the inflation and polarizing of the lower strata of the people actually getting worse and worse. And especially the push for the capitulation of the JCPOA was totally a disaster, end up with a disaster, apart from all the advertisement that they said this is the panacea for all the problem of the Iran. And after that, the Trump actually tore it down. It gives some more inertia to the opposition group. So Ayatollah Khomeini finally gets out of the shadow from the Rafsanjani and it started to gather. But the problem is that Ayatollah Khomeini was very, very lonely, and the support of the Ayatollah Khomeini was getting smaller and smaller. So the only problem that remained for the Ayatollah Khomeini to rely on the small but very strong part of the population that are more conservative and more religious. This is the only way that he can find some kind of the united forces to help him out to get the power. And that is why you can see a lot of tendency toward being more conservative in the last 20 years ago. And I will refer to what late Michael Parenti actually described, that all these revolutionary society, which they come under the siege from the Western countries, has to sacrifice some of the democratic process in order to survive. And this is exactly what happened in the Soviet Union and the European, Eastern European people's democracies. And this is exactly what happened in Iran. So do not mistaken with that. This is why, what is the main reason behind this shift toward more conservatism. So basically, all this, and the other thing is that by the help of the activity, like especially the activities of the Martyr General Soleimani, Iran managed to form a regional axis of resistance. So all these, you add to all this a number of the huge change in the international arena. I just wanted to give you two major turning points. One of the major starting of the special operation, Russian special operation in Ukraine, and the second one was the Palestinian group on the operation of the 7th of October. These are two major international events with help that Iranian revolutionary faction in the government getting more and more strength. One of the symbol of this strength is the presidency of the Mr. Ebrahim Raisi. Ebrahim Raisi was the one that he really wanted to support the Ayatollah Khamenei idea and actualize this support. And he had a lot of significant effort, but unfortunately by the shady death of him, by the crash of his helicopter, he could not continue. One of the major achievements that Raisi did is, especially in the foreign policy, is that he secured Iranian membership in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and also he strengthened the strategic relationship with Russia and China. In the aspect of the internal aspect, he managed actually to talk more with the working class, especially industrial working class in the South. And actually he helped a couple of the already privatized this huge industry back to the hands of the state. And this was one of the major things that he did against the 8 years of the neoliberal policy of the Rouhani. So right now, after the death of the Ebrahim Raisi and his foreign minister, the neoliberal fight back, Masoud Pezeshkian came to power, and Masoud Pezeshkian especially has to continue. He continued whatever happened during the 8 years of the Rouhani. And the condition is getting worse. The economic situation, especially the lower classes, are getting more and more worse. The inflation skyrocketed, and the value of the currency, local currency, actually really dwindles. And this is at the same time, imperialism see this is a good option that to help by putting more pressure on Iran, to help the Pezeshkian can actually convince the Iranian masses that this is the right time to compromise and to go toward the West. It's you remember during the Salvador Allende government, when it came to power in Chile, Nixon said that make the situation much worse, in that point worse to the Chile, that make the economy scream. And this is exactly what happened. They planned to make the economy a screen, and after that, prepare the right time, foment the internal dissatisfaction and internal revolt, and as a result of that, finally started to have a military operation against Iran, which was in the plan for a long time. If you listen to the Brian Berletic latest video that he described all these step-by-step plan already actually recommended by one of these think tanks in 2009. So this is not a new thing. The plan was already, and a lot of United States officials actually confirmed that. So the logic of the imperialism, the logic of the imperialism for the as an end stage of the capitalism, and with the tendency of the rate of profit to fall, there is no any other way around, any other solution other than to subjugate Iran, Russia, and China, and to gain unfettered access to their vast resources. There is no other way for imperialism to survive. So today or tomorrow, the plan won't be changed, won't be delayed, won't be they actually surrender for a while, which they couldn't fight anymore, but nobody can have the crystal ball to forecast what will happen. And the lesson of the history, exactly the same thing that happened for Russia from the very, you remember that there is one point of time, even Putin asking to join to the NATO. He and Medvedev actually attended the meeting for the Katyn massacre that was superficially actually, they said that the Soviet Union was responsible for that. And he and Medvedev supported that. And right now, you see that where is Putin right now standing? He is in the face-to-face fight with the NATO. The same thing in my view is happening in Iran. Even if there is a lot of undecisiveness, but the pressure of the imperialism is such a way that there is no way around Iran. You have heard the latest thing from Mr. Trump, that he said the unconditional surrender. This is the only condition that they have to stop this war. A brief thing. Sorry, how much time I have? I lost the track of time, Ron.
You're basically over time, so
Yeah.
finish as soon as you can. But
I finished it. I just wanted a brief thing about the slogan of the opposition that's right now. There are very scattered opposition. I do not want to waste your time about talking about the monarchies. This is a totally bankrupt thing, but with a very big mouth. But something that it's worth it to mention is about the social democrat, religionists, and the follower of the Western Marxism. What is their slogan right now for the change? Basically, their slogan in this or that way are targeted to topple Iranian government. This is the first thing that are in common with all of them, but with the different tone, with the different nuances. And the urgent thing that they said is they said peace for any price, peace slogan, and you can imagine what it means by the tone that and by the policy that the United States are following. What peace means? Peace means the total surrender of Iranian and give the sovereignty totally 100% to the United States. They asked for the general referendum. You mean that in such a crisis, what is the meaning of the general referendum? They are looking for some kind of the people like Chalabi, Iranian Chalabi, to come to the power. There is no doubt anyone other than this Chalabi or like Karzai has a chance to come from the ballot boxes of the general referendum. And they said that they are for Iran, but against the Iranian government. What you define, if a real patriot define Iran, the embodiment of the nation is Iranian government. How you can support Iran without supporting the embodiment of the nation? There is no, other than this embodiment of the Islamic Republic, there is nothing left instead of some kind of the subjective, something like Iran in my mind. And the illusion, the last one is the illusion of the very swift victory. It means that still the memory of the swift victory in the 1979 still have in their mind of this opposition. They thought that the situation will be much easy and the same short time needed to topple which is the condition, international condition is not the same. The vacuum that may come as a result of the toppling the government, it definitely 100% would be felt by the United States and the pro-Western forces. That's all.
Thank you. And you may take off the
Sure.
presentation so we can return to our normal thing. Thank you, Farshid. So what we're going to do now, take a couple minutes to make a few announcements and then move on to questions and comment session. ICSS depends on your donation. To continue its activity, we want you to go to our website, icssmarks.org, and there are different ways of you can make a donation. Please do that. We do need the money to continue our work, which we have been doing for a long time. Also, next week, we will have Grover first speaking in this forum on his research on Christian Rakovsky. So that's coming up for the next week, and then you can look up our website for future programs. So as far as this session is concerned, the rules are every participant raise their hands through this Zoom. Everybody knows how to raise hands. I'll try to go in sequence, but if I'm not picking up in sequence, please don't be disturbed. I may pick somebody else, but I'll come back to you. And you get 2 minutes to make a comment. Try to be very focused on the subject matter discussed today, not go on to a tangent in order to not, so that we can have a focused discussion. And then we'll give Farshid a chance to respond. There's no time limit for the speaker. So Farshid, you can take your time. With that done, I will go to the first hand raised. There's only one right now, Eugene Rule. Eugene, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Well, first I want to sort of violate one point and remind everybody this is March 8th, and that's universally recognized as International Women's Day. And it was recognized by Lenin in a decree in 1922, also by the United Nations. And it's pretty much ignored here in the politically backward United States. But I just wanted to say something about that. So I wanted to say that. But I also wanted to, I don't know much about Iranian history, but I always remember Mohammad Mossadegh, who was the democratically elected prime minister of Iran. He was Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 1953, and basically, he's one of my heroes. So I just want to know, what do people think about Mohammad Mossadegh in Iran today? He's one of my heroes, as I said.
Okay, Farshid, please go ahead, make a comment on
Yeah.
that if you choose to.
Yeah, apart from some kind of the unattention from the very beginning of the revolution, but still in the majority of the Iranian people, in the heart of the majority of Iranian people, and there is a love for Mossadegh, and there is no doubt about that, his patriotism. At the same time, right now, there is more possibility to really analyze his policies and his mistake also, because to be honest to you, even if he's a real uh, nationalist guy, he's really a patriotic guy, but at the same time, he made some kind of the mistake regarding relying so much on the help of the United States, and he thought that there is a big contradiction between this policy of the England and the United States. And this rely actually, he was not really believe that there would be such a coup d'etat brewing. Otherwise, if he can he knew better in advance, he could much more make the Iranian masses more ready to resist this coup d'etat. And Iranian masses really waiting for some kind of the leadership, especially from Mossadegh, to resist this coup d'etat. It's a long story, but as a general answer to you, Eugene, still Muhammad Mossadegh is in the heart of the Iranian people, and they love him really massive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person is Mehmet. Mehmet, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. That's fine. What I'd like to ask is, if you have covered this, I apologize because I was busy with the background work here. But before Mossadegh, the oil was belonging to the Iranians, to the imperialists, and only the Iranians got only like about 3% of the oil, while the England, France, U.S. They were getting 97%. So Mossadegh pursued a nationalist line and tried to use the oil revenues for the Iranian ruling classes. But this was interrupted, as we know. They brought him down. But couldn't there have been an option where the profits were shared more fairly between the Iranian ruling classes and imperialism? If the Iranian ruling classes could have negotiated the problem, we would not have all these problems today. I'm sure the ruling class in Iran having comprador characteristics in the 21st century imperialism. Wouldn't there be a compromise? And they could have made a deal with capitalism or imperialism. Why were the reconcilable contradictions not resolved like they did with Saudi Arabia? I mean, Saudi Arabia just gives its sovereignty and everything, and they get certain benefits. So, are the mullahs nationalists or represent the old-fashioned national bourgeoisie who are trying to control their own resources? So, what is the class composition and characteristics of the ruling class? And what then are the main contradictions between the ruling classes of Iran and imperialism? Is it the oil profits? Is it religion? Is it Israel wanting to eliminate a regional contender? So, what is the main contradiction that they have that we are seeing the results of? Thank you.
Yeah. Mehmet, you mentioned a lot of different factors. You see, first of all, and actually I noticed that Bahman Azad, Comrade Bahman Azad is in the audience, and Bahman, you can always chime in because he's the expert of this history. So, but my 2 cents of that is that, first of all, I think the contradiction between imperialism and at that time colonialism with Iran was much more than just the oil. You see, the oil was the main topic that was brought the attention of the Iranian masses. This is, and Mossadegh tried every venue. He went through Lahe, Netherlands, in Lahe, Netherlands court and tried to get some kind of the fair share. And this is, he tried every single venue, and even he tried to bring the American as a mediator to have solved this. But being has a long border with the Soviet Union, the geostrategy of Iran is much more, even if oil has a certain role in that, but the strategic, geopolitical strategy of Iran is much more. And this is the main fear of the imperialism at that time was that Iran was in the brink of being succeeded by the communists and the leftist group, and because during the Second World War, actually a part of the northern Iran, actually due to the agreement between the Allied forces, actually came under the auspices of the Soviet Union. And at that part, actually, the democratic movement actually grew a lot. You see, the democratic branch of the Tudeh party in Azerbaijan actually grew a lot. And the American imperialism, and especially the English imperialists, see that this threat is coming. So in my point of view, this is a major part rather than the oil itself. And because after the coup d'etat, actually a consortium actually formed by the American and English petroleum, and American through this they could get a better share of the benefit of the oil extraction. So some kind of the compromise reached to that point. But the problem still exists. They wanted to make Iranian a bastion against the leak of the communism through the South. I hope that somehow it answers the question.
Okay, thank you.
Just a follow-up, Arash. Why wouldn't the ruling classes who are ready to compromise play that role, like it did in Turkey? You know, they were against Soviet Union, they were the bulwark against communism, and they could have just reconciled the differences, maybe.
I think they didn't give the colonialists didn't give them the opportunity for this compromise. They wanted, but they haven't given them. You see, Mossadegh wanted to do some kind of the compromise, but it never gave, because they thought that there is enough opposition inside Iran that the coup d'etat can be succeeded. And it has also very contradictory, because I don't know whether you are aware that the first try to coup d'etat actually failed by the help of the Tudeh party, but the American wanted to actually leave and finish it up. They said that Roosevelt said that we are not successful, it's better to postpone. But the English English MI6 and the English agent actually insisted that no, there is still a chance that we can succeed it. And they brought, by their insistence, they brought the American, and finally they succeeded to do the coup d'etat.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Jim, you're next. You'll be followed by Peter Fay.
Yeah. So this is very interesting to me because I was on an aircraft carrier returning from Africa, and we had docked in Yemen. Imagine that, docking in Aden. And shortly after that, because there wasn't enough time for us to get up to Iran, they wanted us back in the Philippines to be in position for the Tonkin Gulf incident. The Shah of Iran actually flew aboard. And I was like 15 feet away from him. I could feel the evil. I had no political understanding at all. I was 20. And I really could understand why the 79 revolution occurred. The one thing I kept hearing a lot about was Bani Sadr. And I was a little bit confused about that because he apparently was the president, but I'm not clear about why he was deposed, who did that, because my understanding of him was he was at least a democratic socialist who would have been more secular without the, in my opinion, the middle-aged attitudes towards women, for example. And then the last thing I want to point out was there was a march yesterday. This is a huge war. It's going very, very fast, escalating maniacally. And in San Francisco, we were lucky if we had 10,000 people. I was astounded. It's very scary. And I appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
You mean the supporting the war, yeah? You mean the demonstration that supported the war, right? Against
No, opposing the war.
Yeah.
Oh, there was 100 people, 200 people
Very
supporting the
right.
war. Yeah.
But back to problem that you mentioned about the Bani Sadr. You see, Bani Sadr, apart from his kind of the liberal attitude, social democrat attitude, the crux of his policy was type of the liberal. But this is even not that much important, that there were some shady relationship with especially the security agent, French security agent, you see. And they wanted, actually, Bani Sadr wanted, because even at that time, by the slogan that he made in the within the Iranian people, very, very similar to a slogan that Pezeshkian made, Pezeshkian, the president, a slogan about the freedom of the women and this and that, democratic freedom. But the essence of his policy was to get rapprochement with the West. And one of the important evidence that I can tell you right now, because it's very past and I cannot remember every single evidences, after the attack of the Putsch attack of the Delta forces to the desert of Tabas, actually there were a lot of remaining evidences, like the helicopter that was damaged but still was intact. And it was a lot of information in that helicopter. But Bani Sadr, before reaching the people of the RGC, he actually commanded to totally bomb and destroy all the evidences. And his approach after being in exile in France actually showed his position about the about the Iranian Islamic Republic. So he's also just a continuation, but he can say more openly after he went to exile. So but it was at the beginning, it was not so explicit, it was not so open, but by the passing the time, it shows that. And the revolt that after, as a result of his deposing, and Mujahideen actually helped him with one of the ex-pilot, Shah ex-pilot, that he flew and went to France by the help of the Mujahid.
Okay, thank you. So next is Peter Fay. He will be followed by Janet Coburn.
Well, thanks for this talk. It's very interesting, Farshid. And actually, Mehmet asked some of the questions I really was thinking of, which is, the different forces that are existing today, not during Mossadegh's time, but really today. What are the different forces on the ground today that are playing a large role in this, both in the initial demonstrations in December regarding the inflation and financial problems, and then later the reversal of that and the massive demonstrations in support of the government, and then with the killing of Khamenei, again, more demonstrations in support of him. The reason I'm interested in this is because, as you know, you well know, Khamenei has had a very ambiguous, role in terms of, the crushing working class movements. He is now being hailed as a martyr, someone that must be defended, by all means, is for the independence of Iran. Nonetheless, he was behind the massacre of Tudeh party members and MEK and others in '88. There were, of course, Khomeini was obviously the kind of the leader of that, but nonetheless, he acknowledged only a few years ago in 2017, I think he was quoted as saying that he defended the assassination of the leftists as terrorists and hypocrites, and he had no compunctions whatsoever in massacring leftists in Iran. So, this, what does the left, and not that there is much left in Iran, but those very small numbers that are there, what is a position that they can take that defends, as you say, the only defense of sovereignty is the Islamic Council, the government of Iran today has to be defended. But nonetheless,
That's 2 minutes. Go ahead.
okay, yeah. So nonetheless, I'm just trying to counterpose the two necessary political views of leftists that want to overthrow the government, yet at the same time want to defend the government in order to defend sovereignty. Can you kind of explain those issues?
You brought very important issue, Bill, and maybe you have sensed that I try to stay away from getting through this discussion because this discussion is very, very delicate type of the discussion. We have to know exactly the nuances inside the political structure that right now is in the Iranian government. It's not easy to see that. And first of all, you made a few things that I'm a little bit reluctant to accept that. You see, especially the way that you emphasize the role of Khamenei in suppressing the it's very obvious that he is not a socialist. He is not a pro-communist. No doubt about this. No doubt about this. But this is something that we usually face with the national democratic movement. Just by the help of you see, I fortunately have to pass very short about the similarity with what you see in Russia. After the Yeltsin, this is the Putin that came to power. Is it the same Putin that you can see right now? No. He was anti-communist. Putin is not a Marxist. There are a few here and there, some kind of the saying in support of the Stalin, just for the sake that he wanted to bring the patriotic sentiment through the Russian people to help them to resist against NATO. But he's not a communist. Even the China, these are not, they said, by the way, they're saying, they said that we are not socialists. We are not reached to the socialists. But in the world that the left movement cannot by any comparison compare to the bloc, the socialist bloc that was around and so powerful with the leadership of the Soviet Union. You cannot have any comparison with that. So what the communists should do in these cases, are they just looking for the ideal that they have in their mind? And because the idea is not actualized, say that we are against everything, like a lot of communist parties that you can see all over the world, not limited to Iran. They said that we are against every imperialism, and so Russia is imperialist, China is imperialist, and there is a pyramid theory that everyone, even Iran, is an imperialist. By this way, you cannot be in the side of the masses that are trying to find some solution to fight against imperialism. You have to see what are the actual forces in the field that you can somehow support that, as long as you do not have the leadership. And I have some doubt. I cannot tell exactly how much is the role of the Khamenei in the massacre of the people. Yes, he has to support that. He cannot take back whatever the government did in 1988, for sure. From which part of head of the government you expected to recount whatever happened in the very short time. Right now, the Chinese, apart from all the criticism that from the Mao Zedong, you see how much they deal with him and how much he respected him, even if they know that he made a lot of his mistakes. So this is the way, and this is the mistake that Khrushchev did not do. And one of the main reasons of the collapse of the Soviet Union was the unwanted, unnecessary criticism that Khrushchev made from Stalin. So do not accept to Khamenei to say that we made mistake. And definitely, if the Iranian democratic forces can gain power, which this is, in my point of view, this is the only way in the framework of the existing government, you emphasize on the revolutionary part, revolutionary item that still in the constitution of the Iranian Revolution, we have to work on organizing the working class. We have to work on the organizing of the working people and make the our demand in the right time. But everything is bound at first to keep the sovereignty of the Iranian nation. Without Iranian nation, without the nation is under threat of the getting to different balkanization of the Iran. There is no hope that you can go and you can support. There is a new wave of the organizational effort by the industrial workers before starting of this recent war that is getting more and more strength and try to gather the people under the same type of the trade union, and they can easily announce their grievances. But you see how much damage is this war. They have to stop right now. They have to silence right now and be in the front to help the sovereignty of the Iran. So all this contradiction, when a nation is under the immediate threat, you see that the link between China, Russia, and Iran is the crucial link for the emergence of the multipolar world. And everybody knows that through this link, Iranian is the weakest one. And that's why all the concentration of the imperialism are focused on Iran, and China and Russia are very well aware of that. If Iran goes down, they are the next. And this is the big shock, big damage through this type of the cooperation that is not even yet formed. I hope that somehow I answered your question.
Okay, thank you. So we have three hands raised. It's 11:59. So I have to insist that questions, only one question, and if you're making comment, keep within 2 minutes. I'll ask Alan to stick to 2 minutes now that we are almost there. So Janet, you're next. You will be followed by Citizen of the Planet, and then Bill Meyer. Thank you. These will be the last three questions as of now. So go ahead, please, Janet.
Thank you. Unlike most of the Arab Gulf states that were formed out of the defeat of the Ottoman Empire by the West in World War I, and thus they were established relatively recently, Iran is one of the world's oldest continuous major civilizations going back to the 7th century BC. It is also known as Persia. This is going to be a big ask, but it is related to the sovereignty of Iran. Can you give a summary of the history of Iran going back, including the Persian empires, and how its history and its Islamic culture, perhaps a form of liberation theology, impacts current day Iran?
Keep your answer brief because we have other questions coming up, please, Farshid, on this one.
Janet, I'm sorry that this is the answer in a lot of discussion. It might be the topic of another presentation, but something very, very brief is that the Islamic culture are so intertwined by Iranian, by Persian culture that you cannot separate them. There are some kind of the futile trying that they wanted to go back to the time of Zoroastrian and the big Cyrus things, and these are kind of the it's not right. It's not right. You see, the And this is one of the important things, even if Khomeini and Khamenei always talking about Islam, their Islam has a very strong tone of the nationalism. Their Islam is different than the Islam like the Salafis, like the Saudi Arabian, like the Daesh are talking about. You have to distinguish between this. Islam is so intertwined with the Iranian culture. Shia, especially Shia, you cannot ignore the difference, the big difference between the Shia culture and Sunni culture. And this is not something that you can hear from a religious person. I am a materialist person. I am the non-religious person, but I'm pretty sure that I understand that there is a major difference between this culture. And to assure you that what we call it as an Iranian culture has a very strong contribution of the Shia culture. And Iranian manage somehow even to change the Islamic culture as a whole and coin their influence on that. Sorry for this brief discussion.
Since it's a subject, may I ask you, is there a difference between within Shia, there are two schools, and one is more, I guess, committed to revolutionary change than the other? If you can explain that.
One general major thing is what I quoted directly from Imam Khomeini. Imam Khomeini said there are two Islam, American Islam and the revolutionary Islam. And this is not something just limited to the Iranian religious. In all the history of the religion, you can see always there are different tendencies. One tendency is through the masses. One tendency is looking toward the governing classes. And like as Gramsci says, you see, the clergy is a part of the intelligentsia. And like any other group of the intelligentsia, the fault line between revolutionary and counter-revolutionary is not either below or above this group. It goes through this group. You can find a lot of clergy that are looking and have support of at the time before the revolution. They were supporting the feudal system, the feudal lords, the feudal landowners. And at the same time, there is a lower class of the clergy that are living within the people. You remember that during the Middle Ages in Europe, one of the major way to go top to of the social class, to change your social class and the social mobility was going through the religious seminary and religious and becoming religious. A simple countryside boy can go to this studying and change his class. So this class mobility is one of the major things that the clergy is not a monolithic group, like always saying that, yeah, this is a theocracy government, this is a government that is being ruled by the clergy, and this is totally reactionary. It's not true. You have to distinguish. Even right now, there are some forces that even they have all the appearance of a clergy, but they are supporter of the neoliberal policy of the Rouhani or Pezeshkian or whoever. So in my point of view, this is the two main trends that still are at work. The new young people, religious young people, is getting more and more aware of what's really going on and getting more and more closer to the left.
Thank you.
So quickly.
Okay, hold.
Can I just,
We have two more people.
yeah, I know, but I just wanted to ask if this could possibly be a topic for another ICS.
Yeah. I think we'll have to have him back. We have a scholar who's a Marxist, so we'll have him back soon.
But
And
also, Farshid, can you put your contact information in the chat?
Sure.
okay, so let's go to the next person is Citizen, and please stay with 2 minutes and keep your question brief, please. Thank you.
Okay, definitely let me know when my 2 minutes are up. I just want to say for people who only hear the audio of this presentation that I left in the chat a YouTube interview, and the interview is called Iranians Want to Be Bombed Inside the Propaganda Campaign for War. It's an excellent interview. I just want to say that I've often said in these relevant presentations that empires collapse through overreach and miscalculation, but empires don't knowingly stick their heads into a red-hot oven. But after 23 years, at least 23 years of Israel trying to get the US to militarily attack Iran in a serious way, and after 23 years of the left saying, this week for sure, we're going to war against Iran. Finally, Israel finally got a US president idiotic and clinically semi-demented enough to attack Iran in this serious way. It's a tragedy, but if it had to be, I'm not crying about finally being wrong. I just wanted to say there was a quip that Trump is going to, at $1 billion a day for this war, Trump is going to bankrupt the country like he bankrupted so many of his businesses. I just want to ask you, what's amazing to me from even Western mainstream media news, US and Western mainstream media news is making it look like the Iranian missile response hasn't laid a scratch on Israel or US military assets in the Middle East, while the mainstream news is making it look like Israel and the US are supposedly striking Iran at will. So I have a kind of a prosaic question. I'm sorry, it's not a more technical question, but what English language news sources, either in print or video, perhaps also even on YouTube, where I get a lot of my alternative
2 minutes are over.
Okay, thank you. Could you recommend for those of us who wish to have an additional source to follow news on Iran?
Regarding the technical question of the military, I can recommend two recent video. One video is with the profession from the MIT talking about a more specific technical point of the way that these missiles are working right now and the improvement that happened after the 12 days war. And another thing is the interview that Danny Haifang made with the young, actually, veteran. So these two seems to me is more technical, and you can refer to them, give you some insight about that. That's all.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Farshid, for your ability to tell a lot of history in a short amount of time. You need much more time than this. But in my interest in trying to find out how Iran is going to fend off the invasion, I went back and tried to study more about the 8-year Iran-Iraq war, which caused tremendous devastation to Iran and Iraq too. And of course, yes, Iraq did have weapons of mass destruction. They used chemical weapons against Iranian people. Millions of people died. Almost 1 million people died. And I in the process of studying that war again, I realized that somehow in the U.S. here, in the left, in the Communist Party movement, I don't remember much discussion about the Iran-Iraq War. We didn't get into until we got involved in the Iraq War with the U.S. So in my studies, I realized that a lot of countries are so funding both sides of the war, and just to keep the war going and creating chaos in the Middle East. And that at the beginning, the Soviet Union was not supporting Iran. And I'm wondering, in the left here, in the U.S., I don't know where you were in the 80s, if you were in the U.S. or not, but was this Western Marxist trend to not support Iran because it was Islamic State, or why did we support Iraq in the war against Iran in the U.S.? And what's going on today in the left movement as far as we saw big rallies against the war, but is the left still having troubles with understanding the imperialist struggle?
Yeah. Regarding the Iran-Iraq war, there is a very interesting tiny book that published by the Monthly Review. It was actually prepared by a group of the political economy from India. The reason behind the Iran-Iraq war, I don't know. I cannot remember the exact name, but you can easily find that. Very insightful, very insightful. Not that from point of view of Iran, but very good regarding the factor that actually ended to attack Iraq. And also there are some references to Iran-Iraq war also. The way that the United States trying to very viciously and very insidiously try to bring Saddam Hussein to this war and the Second World War, the second war in the Gulf. To answer your second question, unfortunately, the situation is not good. Western Marxism, the main defective thing that I see that it will affect their judgment is that they do not understand the importance of the principal contradiction of the world right now, the principal contradiction of the era right now. The principal contradiction is about imperialism versus all the people around the world. And even if they see that a lot of other contradictions, like dictatorship in so many countries, they actually accuse Iran as a fully dictatorship, and they see that the priority is to topple this dictatorship first, and then think about how to deal with the imperialism. These are, in my point of view, the mistake that the people who are calling themselves Marxists are making. From the 1980s, and there is a very good article in the Monthly Review that they said they actually analyze how in the I have somehow echo. How from the 1980s, even the word imperialism starting to disappear in the literature of the European Marxists, and the emphasis went through some other issue. Even in some cases, they support imperialism. Still, they are going back to the Bernstein and Kautsky idea that imperialism will help the development country to grow. You see, so this is not something that they are affected from this, and the Iranian left are affected from this idea. And the importance of the system named imperialism, with all the effects and all the result of this system is being ignored. And when you get to this point, you lose your compass. And there is no any system anymore in whole world. At the time of the Soviet Union, there were some kind of the leading communist international movement that gives some kind of the headline and gives some kind of, there is no such this thing anymore. And you can see that there are a lot of contradiction and conflict between even the Communist Party all around the world. You might have read the criticism that the Communist Party, the Russian Federation Communist Party right now wrote for the KKE, Greek Communist Party. See, these things are affected the approach of the especially European Marxists. This is a name, but it will cover also American and all over the world. The Marxists that you see that the differences right now happen in a lot of Communist Party in European countries. So as a result of that, when you try to belittle the effect of the imperialism in all the contradictions that are working, the reason is that you will lose the main enemy. Sorry for this.
Okay, thank you, Farshid, for a very good session, a very informative session for our members, and we'd love to have you back soon because the war is continuing, and you bring a wealth of knowledge to us. So thank you again, and Alan, please go ahead and stop the recording now.